especially if I give him the stand and he can talk to you here. And Roger Lear and he introduced us and said maybe we could work together. And I had a lot of knowledge. I had some things, and this guy he has so much knowledge and wisdom. Well, he's much older than I am.
Yeah.
But I want to turn you over to Jose because I could pick on him all day. Here you go.
Thank you. Thanks, Ed. Testing, testing. Can you hear me okay out there?
Did I do okay?
You did very good. All right, we're kind of running out of time, but what I wanted to do is Ed came on board. Roger introduced us. I'll never forgive Roger for introducing us. All puns intended. No. Ed stepped up to the plate when I needed funding for my film, and he was one of the first guys that came on and said, you know what, I think the moon rising film is valid. It's a valid project, and I'd like to get involved. So he became one of my executive producers on it. I want to applaud him, you know. It's hard to get people involved when you're a filmmaker, especially if no one believes in the phenomenon that you're presenting. So, you know, I give him props. And plus, you know, he has some very interesting phenomenon going on up in space. And anyone that's seen his UFO Wars DVD or has gone sky watching with him will, you know, you can verify. I mean, George Noory did not even think it was real until he saw him with his own eyes. Some major celebrities that he's shown UFOs to, and you know, he's done the gamut. So I really applaud him for that. But the reason I'm here is I want to give you guys a sneak preview of the first opening minutes of my film, Moon Rising, which will be finally released in mid-March. I had the opportunity of presenting it, world premiere of it, at the Emmys Theater in Hollywood, California, which was really great. It was a lot of people showed up, got a lot of support from it, and we're going to make the film available mid-March, and it deals with everything you've ever wanted to know about NASA. I decided to put a film together that doesn't cover the same stuff everybody else is doing. That's one thing about the moon. You got tons of documentaries out there. So I had to bring something that was totally different, that had not been touched on, and we found out some things that in that film is just going to make a big impression on a lot of people. I started colorizing the moon, airbrushing it, because I wanted to make a poster for my movie. And this is explaining the sequence here. But as it turned out, I started seeing anomalies just popping out at you because, you know, in black and white, we've been told all these years, 40 years plus, that the moon is nothing but a gray, desolate piece of rock, which it is not. And I recently discovered, about 2 months ago, the same thing that John Lear has been telling people since 2006, that there are full-color photographs of the moon. How many people have known this? A few people, you know, in the know. And what I've done is I immediately, as soon as I found this website, I downloaded over 3,000 photos. And I'm talking high-resolution, big photos. Towards the end of this sequence, you're going to see some full-color, natural color of the moon. And I'm planning to do a large-screen format film. I'm calling it The Planet Moon. You can go to theplanetmoon.com. You'll see what's there. But this is going to be a full-color presentation of the moon for the first time in the history of us. That NASA has not, you know, they didn't bother to tell us that there's full-color photographs. They just said, well, this is what it is. It's black and white. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let them start the tape and enjoy. This is part of Moon Rising. Thanks. Thank you.
On January 25th, 1994, the deep space program science experiment known as Clementine was launched from Vandenberg Air Force Base. Clementine was able to deliver more than 1.8 million digital images between February 26th and April 22nd, 1994. These images were quickly accessible to the general public on the World Wide Web. In 1994, President Clinton cited the Clementine mission as one of the major national achievements in aeronautics in space.
By going to the Clementine Lunar Image Browser 1.5, you can find many images that have been smudged or blurred to keep you from seeing what is there. Click on the desired resolution section and choose 1 pixel equals 1 kilometer option. Then by going to the image size in pixels option, choose 768 by 768. You are now ready to see for yourself a huge object on the surface of the moon. On the moon map, you will easily see a dot on the top of this crater and on the lower left. Click on the black dot on top of the crater and a close-up image of this section appears in the browser. What you see is a huge object resting at the top of this crater. It appears to be a large machine or perhaps a large spaceship or a motor of some kind. You can clearly see this photograph has been smudged over and blurred so we cannot see the details. This little gem was discovered and brought to the attention of moon researchers all over the world by Joseph P. Skipper on May 28, 2004. I decided to hire an imaging forensics expert to take this photo and to try and remove the blurring to reveal what is underneath. Jim Horrocks, an imaging forensics expert who has worked with the Los Angeles Police Department, was sent this photo, and his findings were written in a report he submitted to the production. First of all, the astounding measurements he made reveal an object that is 10 times the size of Los Angeles. 10 times the size. This in itself is an incredible detail about the size of this object. By using Adobe Photoshop and some of the filters available within the program, we were able to see more of the details that were lost due to the blurring applied by whoever did this for NASA and the Clementine mission archives. This enormous object seems to be some form of a machine or possibly a spacecraft. In all the enhancements made independently, it appears there may have been what appears to be a giant humanoid wearing a jumpsuit and possibly working on the front portion of this contraption. This may or may not be a giant humanoid. Perhaps the shadows seem to reflect something of a human form. We will never know until NASA releases this photograph unblurred and with the clarity available for us to see. By clicking on the new lunar map now available, you will now see that the same crater is available for viewing in all its clarity. There is no object there anymore, and there is no smudging of anything near or within the crater. We have to ask ourselves, if there is nothing on the moon that suggests alien moon bases, strange structures, machines, and possible civilizations thriving there, then why has there been a deliberate tampering of these and thousands of images we will present here in this film? One of the many challenges I had to deal with in making this film was how the structures on the moon were to be presented. Unfortunately, most of all the Apollo and orbiter photos are black and white. Many photos are in low resolution, so zooming into them for a closer look causes the photos to blur and become pixelated, making it impossible to see details of what's on the surface. While I was designing a poster for the film in Photoshop, I decided that I did not want a black and white photo in the background of the poster. So I decided to color the background image I was using so I would have a full color poster for the film. I took some full color aerial photos of landscapes that closely resemble the distances of the moon's surface, turned them into black and white photos, and compared them to the moon photo I was about to airbrush. Noticing the different shades of the aerials from Earth and the colors represented, I then started making a color palette in Photoshop. All I did was airbrush the colors onto the moon photo as they appeared on Earth. But the structures and other objects on the moon revealed themselves. I was so overwhelmed at the results, I have now colorized over 247 photos. Now that I had come up with a format and a routine for colorizing the moon, I decided to gather the most famous Apollo moon anomaly photos that researchers from all over the world had been presenting for years and decided to colorize them. This is one of the many original NASA photos that has some very unique anomalies, especially here in this area. This is what it looks like after we bring up the contrast to eliminate the brightness applied to distort the image. And this is what it looks like after applying my colorizing process to it. So remember, these are colors and tones I used from Earth photography applied to the moon's surface. With Earth colors applied, you can see all the details with depth perception as never before.
By painting the moon with Earth colors and tones, we can now see what has been there all along for us to view.
The Hubble telescope has taken the most incredible photography of deep space and far off in the vast universe. When you see these spectacular scenes, you can't help but wonder how many others live out there. So when NASA was asked by scientists and astronomers when the Hubble telescope would be used in photographing the moon, NASA's reply was that because the moon was too bright, it would be impossible to get accurate photography of the moon. The first photo was released from the Hubble Space Telescope in 1999. Needless to say, the scientists and astronomers were not too pleased at how NASA had deliberately lied to them. When I heard about this photograph, I thought for sure we would see the moon in full color. But of all the photos taken by the Hubble telescope of the moon, they are in black and white.